Welcome, everyone. This is our new program, Pastor's Corner, and I am Pastor Kelly Milne. I belong to and preach at the Bridgewater New Jerusalem Church in Bridgewater. I am in the midst of my second master's degree, I should say, in ministry and pastoral care. Our topics for this show will vary. They'll have a little pastoral twist to what we are discussing. And we have decided to start with grief. My experience with grief is by working through home health with hospice patients. I was also an EMT in the past, and of course by being a pastor. So we would like to bring up this topic among many others, and hopefully we can help you through your grief and other topics. And now, my partner in crime, Reverend Donna.
Thank you. I'm Reverend Dr. Donna Keene. I am the minister at the Elmwood New Church in East Bridgewater. I've been there for 36 years, and I have had a passion for doing something for people about grieving because it is a universal topic. I'm also a licensed mental health counselor, and in both of my professions, I encounter people who are either struggling with grief, trying to get over grief, anticipating grief, and it's about any kind of grief that you can possibly have. So Kelly and I have decided that we need to talk about that so that people will understand it better, they will know what to expect, and they will recognize that grieving is normal. It happens to us all, and we all do it in a different way. There's no right or wrong way to grieve. It's just how we individually do it. So we're hoping that this show will bring you some interesting facts, some understanding about grief, and possibly in the future, a few other topics that are pretty universal for us all these days. So let's begin.
Let's do it.
Well, I'm here because I have a firm belief that grief has to be universal. It has to be experienced by everyone at some time in their lives. And with what's going on in the world today, there are a lot of people grieving. There's a lot of people who are going through trauma. There's a lot of people who have been through trauma and possibly have not really made any peace with it. So I'm hoping that as we go through this today, we'll bring some of the stages of grief into play. We'll talk about how people have adjusted over the years, and also what we can do when people say, I don't know what to do, or what should I say to somebody who's lost somebody. It's really not something that's taught in any school. It's not something that people are prepared for. There's no, Dear Abby that you can go to. So I'm hoping that we're going to provide a service.
Sure. I think that we can do that. I'd like to start with, we all know grief is, okay, we're sad, we cry, I go alone in my room, I get a little depressed maybe, but there's more to it. So what do you use as a very basic definition of grief?
Well, I think the first stage when I've experienced grief in my own life has been shock. Unexpected, don't know what to think or feel.
Right.
Kind of go through the motions of life, eat, sleep, get up, go to work, but it seems different. There's an overarching sense that there's something wrong. There's something missing in my life. And that takes a lot of getting used to, and it takes a lot of processing when I go through that. So I think there's that incredible sense that there's something missing.
Right, right. I agree. Shock is generally the first major feeling
Right.
that people get. So when we say someone's in shock, what can I say to them? What do I say when I find out, my best friend's mother just passed away, and I don't know what to say? I mean, I think there's a difference between what I say initially.
Mhm.
Let's say I'm with her when it happens, as opposed to I get to not talk to her until 3-4 days later.
Mhm.
Do you think there's a difference into how I can react to her and her
Mhm.
shock?
Oh, yeah. If you're with somebody when they get news that somebody has died or something has happened that's traumatic, and they're trying to process that at that moment, depending on who and very frankly what gender they are, a hug
Mm.
is about the best thing you can do for somebody who's in shock. That physical touch means a lot. If, in fact, there are no words that you can come up with, the hug will do.
Mhm.
If you do have a sense of words, you can say to somebody, you're in shock. This is traumatic. Name it for them. Let them know that you understand that their brain isn't functioning right now. Now, 3 days later, you can come at a different point. They've had some time to process it. They've had some time to talk to other people. Then it's about caring. It's about reaching out and caring for that person where they are that day. And it's never about me. It's about them and where they are. And I
Absolutely.
think the absolute worst thing anybody can say to somebody who's going through grief or a loss is, I know exactly how you feel. That's
Mhm.
not true.
No.
It's a lie. Because you can't know how they feel.
Right.
You
Right.
know how you feel.
Right.
I know how I feel. They may feel differently. And you have to give them respect for that.
Right. Do you think there's a difference in shock when it's an expected loss versus unexpected? Or is the level of shock the same?
I think if it's unexpected, for instance, I know somebody recently who, in full health, at the age of 64, had a heart attack in the middle of the night and died. And his spouse found him. There's no words. Total shock. Had no indication of ill health at all. That's quite different from someone who has had a prolonged illness, who has already determined that they're going to pass away sometime soon. And you then have time to say goodbye. You then have time to sit with them and help them to organize how they want to do that.
Right.
It's very different when it's total shock.
It is. It is. I've experienced myself and then seeing others, especially maybe in a hospice situation where it is expected. And sometimes, even though you know it's expected and maybe you could prepare something to say, sometimes saying nothing and just being there with the person is the best thing to do. And that says more than any words that you could just, search for. Definitely. Yeah. So, let's see now. So when we talk about grief, is it just when we lose a person?
Oh, no. Oh, no. No. I think some of the strongest grief I've ever felt was when I lost a pet.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
And it was trauma because I was in the hospital. I had just totally smashed my right ankle.
Ouch.
And I was sitting there. I had called my family and say, would you please go take care of my cat? And they called me back and said, I'm sorry, your cat's dead. They took it to the vet. The vet said the cat had had a heart attack. I'm in the hospital. What can I do? Who can I talk to? It was one of those times in space where there wasn't anything I could do. So I cried. You know,
Yep.
that's all I could do.
Yeah.
I did negotiate with the vet to see if I could get the ashes, but it was exorbitantly expensive, so I didn't. But it was the only thing I could think of to try to hold on to something that I unexpectedly lost.
Right. Right. Absolutely.
And it took me months to really work through that. Months to get to the point where I didn't expect her to be waiting for me when I walked in the door.
Yeah. Yeah. And, you know, I know in my pastoral education, you know, we talk about what else is a loss. And there are so many losses, losing a home, especially having come through the pandemic.
Mhm.
So many people lost so much. Even especially through the pandemic, and I think we may even still be affected by this, but not being with others.
Mhm.
That was a loss,
Mhm.
especially.
Yeah.
What other losses?
A
can
job.
A job, yeah.
Yeah. I'm aware of somebody who's having to move out of an apartment where she's been for 15 years. And what it's bringing up is the fact that she had to sell her house 15 years ago. And now she's got to leave this apartment. So it's bringing up the old loss of the house, as well as the loss of the apartment. So, you know, you never know what's going to pop up out of that miasma of feelings that we carry around.
Right, right. Take a quick break,
Okay.
and then we will come back to a couple more topics. So join us. Welcome back. If you are just joining us or need a little quick recap, I am Pastor Kelly Milne from the Bridgewater New Jerusalem Church. I am sitting here with the illustrious Reverend Dr. Donna Keene from the Elmwood New Church in East Bridgewater. And we're talking about grief today. And just to kind of continue where we left off, we're talking about the pandemic and the end of the pandemic. And I think that we can relate a lot of this to grief. And because we did lose things.
Mm-hmm.
We lost being with friends. We lost being with our family. We lost loved ones who got COVID. And I think everyone was affected. So what can we do now? What to kind of get out of that slump that we may be in from being home for so long and by ourselves? What do you think?
Well, one thing I know that helps a lot is rather than focusing on the losses, which we've all experienced, to focus on what we have left. because there's always hope. And the idea that this could happen again is pretty scary.
Mhm.
So I'm going to do a little announcement. Please get your COVID shot. But if it should come back and we should be shut down again as the world is shut down, then I think we'll have a little experience in knowing how to get through it better. As far as I know, nobody else was alive around when they had the horrible pandemic in 1918. So this was a first for everybody. And how we went about getting through it, reaching out by phone. I would go to, let's say, my sister's house, and I would bring groceries, and she would allow me to put them in her garage and then talk to me through a door, you know, because my brother-in-law is compromised. It was such a strange way to live. Well, we don't live that way anymore. You know, we get together again. So I think that there's a sense of hope and a sense of moving forward rather than backward. It was a horrible time for everybody. And I keep thinking about all of the first responders and the nurses and the doctors who dealt with it in a way that you and I could never comprehend. The grief that they must have felt on a daily basis. And especially for the families who couldn't be there with their loved ones when they were dying. It's just a strange way of living. And hopefully we'll never have to go through it again, but we know better now. We need to get hope back in our hearts that it's going to be better. It has to be better. I have faith that it'll be better.
And we just need to show that faith
Mm-hmm.
to everyone. Along those lines, our world is still a little bit of a mess. We have some natural disasters occurring. We have some man-made disasters occurring. How do those relate to grief? How do we, well, I'm sure that at some point, as we all start to think about, let's just take the volcano in Iceland, I think we can understand a little bit more. Nature happens, nature evolves, we've seen what nature does. I think what I'm struggling with are all these man-made wars, disagreements, things that, I don't know, can they be solved? But there's a sense of loss,
Mm-hmm.
even for us being so far away from war.
Mm-hmm.
I know that I am feeling. What can we do? What other, to me, my answer is prayer.
Mm-hmm.
What else can we do?
Mm-hmm. I was thinking about this subject, and Thanksgiving is coming. And I got a copy of the Thanksgiving proclamation that President Lincoln gave. I had never read through the whole thing.
Okay.
And it's an amazing document. It was created on October 3rd in 1863. And we know what was going on in 1863. We were in the middle of a civil war.
Mhm.
We had Americans killing Americans.
Right.
And this document talks about the bounty of the season. It talks about the blessings that people have in their lives. It talks about the God-given gifts. And it's a miraculous document of faith and hope in the middle of the worst war we've ever had. And he declared a day of Thanksgiving in the midst of that war. So I look at what's going on, the man-made stuff, and I say, there's got to be hope. There's got to be Thanksgiving. You know? There are so many people. I mean, I remember reading something once where it said if you woke up this morning and got out of a bed, you're better off than 70% of the human race. That's a stirring example of how blessed we all are. And what we need to do is remember those who have less than we do.
That's true.
You know, so I think man-made or nature-made, and the losses are going to keep coming. That's inevitable. I would love to see the end of violence. You know, there's an old story about war, and the two big powers decided they were going to send their best fighters onto an island, just the two of them. And whoever won that fight, who killed the other one, that was going to be the state that ruled the world. They went back to find out who won. They came out arm in arm. They didn't fight. There's something there about war that we need to take into consideration, that violence doesn't have to be. You know,
Right.
there are other ways of doing this.
Right.
So I'm basically on the optimistic side
Yes.
of man-made loss. I think we can do better.
I think we can do better. Absolutely. And then, I mean, this one piece can lead us very easily down a rabbit hole to a completely other world of topics, and chances are we will get to them.
At some point.
But I know that we did want to mention some of the stages of
Mhm.
grief,
Mhm.
whether people are going through it now or eventually.
Mhm.
I know a few that we've mentioned: shock, obviously, denial, anger,
Mhm.
depression, and they don't always go in order.
No.
There is no order.
No. It's not really nice and neat. It's never nice and neat.
No.
No.
And it can come up anytime.
Well, yes. And one of the things that I'm aware of is that if we experience grief in our younger years, then as we grow older, we have more examples of grief. And basically, every time we experience a grief, present tense, we remember all the old ones. So they kind of build on each other. And they can catch us unawares. And I had one person who told me she was having a perfectly lovely day. She was getting ready to go to work. She sat down on the side of her bed and sobbed. Totally unexpected. Doesn't know why it happened, had not thought about anything that was sad, sat there for about 5 minutes sobbing, got up and went to work. Something triggered her grief. We don't have to know what. We just have to accept it and ride it.
Right. And these are just some of the things that we as pastors and of our churches and dealing with our congregation, these are things that come up
Mhm.
to us all the time. And we are taught how to deal and how to
Mhm.
help and give hope.
Mhm.
Is there any one thing that you would say to someone who is just at their wit's end after a loss?
Mhm. Yeah, sure. Pray. We have to get out of the belief that we are always going to feel this way. We have to get out of the belief that we are in control at that point in time. We're not. And so by prayer, we take ourselves into another dimension. We get out of ourselves. We point our intellect and our heart and our mind to something greater than us that we need help from.
Right, right. And we know, as we have a faith.
Mhm.
I think more than people let on is that they do have a faith,
Mhm.
whatever that may be, a supreme being, and God, Buddha, whomever. And they need to call on that, and they
Mhm.
need to use that inner strength to get through, whether
Mhm.
it's grief, whether it's the next 5 minutes.
Mhm.
Because sometimes that's how grief is,
Yeah.
getting
True.
through the next
5 minutes.
5 minutes,
Yeah.
30 seconds, whatever it
Yeah.
may be.
And I've always said, and I know that this may not be a popular comment, but funerals are for the living.
Yes,
The person's already gone into the spiritual world,
correct.
into heaven.
Yes.
And it also gives us a public place in our culture where it's okay to cry
Mhm.
out loud in the midst of other people, especially for men.
There's
Because
another rabbit hole.
sometimes- Yeah, no, but I mean, sometimes I
Yeah.
think that they don't know how to do it.
Mm.
It's very not normal
Mm.
for them to give way to their emotions. And so I always encourage people to really feel the feelings that you're feeling. And it's okay to cry because it releases toxins from the body.
Absolutely.
It also releases serotonin, so it makes us all feel better. That's a secret women have had for a long time.
It's a very long time. Yes, we know how healthy it is to cry. So it's time for us to wrap up
Yeah?
this particular show. We have many more topics on the horizon, and I feel we have just touched the surface
Mhm.
of grief, and we will be continuing that for sure.
Mhm.
You know, for those who do have a faith, I very much turn to a particular psalm when I'm having a tough time, and it's Psalm 121. So if you would like to look that up, hopefully that gives you a little bit of encouragement and hold you over till our next program.
Mhm.
Is there anything you'd like to close
Yeah.
with?
Yeah. I was feeling rather agnostic in my younger years, and I was talking to a counselor, and I was talking about anxiety and depression and all the rest of that stuff. And he said, "Fear not, it is the Father's good pleasure to give you the kingdom." And it changed my life. It changed my life. It's His good pleasure to give me the kingdom.
And with that, we'll see you next time.